It was one of those chilly mornings in the city when everyone walked a little faster, their collars turned up, coffee cups steaming in their hands. People rushed by, eyes fixed ahead, not daring to meet the gaze of those sitting hopelessly along the sidewalk. Among them sat an older man, wrapped in layers of mismatched clothing, his gray beard tangled, and eyes worn down by life. His name was Marvin. He had sat in the same spot for the past 3 years. Most people didn't notice him anymore. He had become part of the background, like a lamppost or a cracked piece of pavement. Just another homeless man in a city full of them. But this morning was different. A young woman named Tessa was on her way to her new job. She was running late, her nerves buzzing, her thoughts tangled in worries, first-day pressure, rent due, and the weight of starting over in a new city. As she waited for the pedestrian signal to change, her eyes landed on Marvin. There was something in his face, not the poverty or the dirt, but the quiet dignity in how he sat. He wasn't begging. Just there. Still. Silent. Something tugged at her heart. Without even knowing why, she reached into her purse, took out a crisp $100 bill her grandmother had given her, just in case, and walked over. Marvin looked up, surprised. "I don't have any change, miss," he said, his voice deep but gentle. Tessa shook her head. "It's for you. No reason. Just, have a better day, okay?" He stared at the bill, then at her, then back at the bill. "Are you sure?" She nodded. Marvin hesitated. Then, with shaky hands, he took it. "Thank you," he whispered. Tessa smiled and hurried off, never expecting to see him again. But Marvin just sat there, staring at the money. His mind raced. He hadn't held that kind of money in years. $100 could get him a room for a couple nights, a hot meal, maybe even clean clothes. But as he looked down the street, his eyes landed on someone else. About a block away, a young man named Kevin sat slumped against a building. Marvin had seen him a few times, new to the streets. His clothes were thin, his eyes hollow. Rumor was, Kevin had aged out of foster care and had nowhere to go. He'd been robbed 2 nights ago. No ID. No job. No food. Marvin didn't think long. He stood up, shuffled over to the boy, and knelt beside him. "Here," he said, pressing the $100 bill into Kevin's hand. Kevin blinked. "What? I don't understand." "A kind woman gave it to me," Marvin said. "But you look like you need it more than I do." Kevin shook his head, stunned. "Why would you do that?" Marvin shrugged. "Because someone believed I deserved kindness. And I think you do too." Word of what Marvin had done traveled fast. A local man named Jordan, who often brought sandwiches to the homeless on weekends, overheard what happened and posted the story on social media, along with a photo of Marvin and Kevin sitting together on the curb, smiling. The post read, "A woman gave this homeless man $100. He immediately gave it away to someone who needed it more. This is what true humanity looks like." Within hours, the post went viral. People shared it across platforms, inspired by the unselfish gesture. Donations began to pour in. A local nonprofit reached out to Marvin. They found him a shelter bed, counseling, and eventually a spot in a transitional housing program. They discovered that Marvin had once been a carpenter before losing his job due to injury and slipping through the cracks after a series of bad breaks. With the right support, he began rebuilding his life. But Marvin didn't stop there. With every opportunity he received, he reached back to lift someone else. He started volunteering at the shelter where he now lived, mentoring younger men who had lost their way. He found Kevin again, helped him apply for ID, took him to job interviews, and taught him how to fix things. Kevin landed a job at a mechanic shop 3 months later. Marvin was there, clapping for him with tears in his eyes. Tessa, meanwhile, had forgotten about the moment. Life had swept her up, new job, bills, responsibilities. Until one evening, she stumbled across the viral post. She gasped when she saw Marvin's face. She read the story in silence, her heart swelling. She had given away $100. A simple act. But it had become a chain reaction of goodness. She reached out to the nonprofit and finally met Marvin again at a community event. When she walked in, Marvin stood slowly, his eyes lighting up with recognition. "You," he said, smiling. "You started all of this." Tessa hugged him tightly. "No. You did." The crowd applauded as Tessa and Marvin stood side by side. The mayor gave a small speech about kindness and resilience, and the importance of remembering that everyone has value, even those the world often forgets. Marvin was offered a part-time job assisting at the shelter. He moved into a small apartment paid for by donations from people all over the country who were touched by his story. Kevin, now stable and working full-time, often stopped by to check in on his old friend. Months later, a local high school invited Marvin to speak to students about kindness and giving. He stood in front of hundreds of young people, hands slightly trembling, voice steady. "I was given something small, a gesture, a single moment of kindness. But it changed everything," he told them. "Not just because of the money. But because someone saw me. And I chose to pass it on." As Marvin stepped off the stage, students rushed to shake his hand, some in tears. One girl whispered, "I was going to give up, but your story gave me hope." Dear viewer, if this story touched your heart, remember, kindness is never wasted. A single act, no matter how small, can ripple out in ways you can't imagine. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring, true-to-life stories. Your support helps us share the power of kindness with the world. Be the reason someone believes in goodness again. Sometimes, the richest people are the ones with the least to give, because they give anyway.